if we're just going to be self-focused and we're just going to turn inward and we're going to say, why me, and get angry and feel sorry for ourselves, we're missing out on experiencing God in incredible ways. And I mean incredible ways. And I say, hey friends, welcome to today's video. Today we're going to do a little devotional together for my video this week. It's going to be a little bit shorter video just because my kids and I were just on a short little getaway to Seaside, Oregon. We had such a great time. I got to visit my old little stomping grounds of where I went to Bible school in Cannon Beach, Oregon. And so today's video is a little shorter because I'm still a little bit on vacation mode, but I think this video hopefully will encourage you, this little Bible study. So our story is going to be in 1 Kings 18. I'm reading through 1 Kings. It's verse 8 is where we're starting. I'm not going to read it all. I'm going to kind of tell you the story, but the reason I'm sharing with you this story today is because this story is about being in great need. This story is about being at the end of your rope. This story is about needing God to step in, desperately needing God to step in. And I love that because, guys, I have so many times been in this spot of this woman that we're going to read about, this widow that we're going to read about. And right now I'm in a time of uncertainty where I have this little health issue that came up and it's a little bit scary and I don't know all the details. I got to wait for some future appointments, but it may be nothing. It may be something like I don't really know at this point. And I'm sure there's something in your life right now where you feel like you're in need, you feel scared, you don't know what you're gonna do. And this story of this widow really is one of those inspiring stories of God working in someone's life because they were obedient to God. So this story is about this widow, and I love stories about widows in the Bible because, gotta fix this piece of hair sticking out, because she was a single mom and I'm a single mom too. And so I love that. She knew what it was like to be on her own. She's got one son, and this widow was at the end of her rope. This widow was really struggling. She only had a little bit of food left, and she knew that her and her son were gonna starve. Well, in steps Elijah, and God tells Elijah, I want you to go to this widow. She's going to feed you, because he needed food. So he goes to this widow and asks for water and for food. And she's real honest with him and says, you know what? We only have a little bit of oil and a little bit of flour left. We were going to eat that, and then we were going to go die. Like, she's straight up honest with him. And Elijah says, please go fix me this food, basically, and your oil and your flour is not going to run out. God's going to provide for you in a miraculous way. Why can't I say that right? Miraculous way where your oil and your flour is not going to run out. So this widow has to take a step of faith in doing this because her life and her son's life are at stake. So she fixes this food. She takes a step of faith, trusting the Lord, and guess what happens? That oil and that flour does not run out. So we think, end of story, great, wonderful story, right? Like, happy ending. Well, it goes from bad to a little better to literally the worstest thing could happen in her life. And Elijah has been living with her. We don't know how long, but he's living with this widow and this son. And then her son gets ill. And doesn't it always happen in our lives where things like go from bad and then it might get a little bit better and then it goes to worse, and we're like, seriously, God? Seriously? Like, I thought I was out of that bad stage and now it's getting worse. Well, that's what happened to this widow. Her son gets ill and he dies. And she's upset at Elijah. She's like, why did you bring this upon my family? Like, you living with me. And so Elijah goes in and he prays for that boy. He cries out to God and he says, God, why would you bring this upon this widow that's taking care of me? Why would you allow her son to die? And he doesn't understand. So they're both like not knowing what in the world is happening, why God is allowing this. And he prays with amazing act of faith that God would raise this boy to life. and God answers his prayer, and that son is raised to life. And at the end of this story, in verse 24, the woman says to Elijah, "Now I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord in your mouth is true." I love how that story ends, because it ends with this woman believing in God's goodness, believing in who God is, and seeing God's provision in an amazing way. And there were a couple things that stuck out to me about this story. One was the fact that the widow, she had to take a step of faith in her life, a huge step of faith, to see God's provision. And if she had not taken that step of faith, fixing that food, the last bit of food she had, she would not have seen God's provision. If she had said to Elijah, "I'm sorry, I gotta keep this food to myself because we need it," she would not have experienced God's provision. She would have literally died, her and her son, if she had not taken that step of faith. And part of taking that step of faith was serving. I think it's so crazy to think about this woman. Probably felt like, I have nothing to give. I have nothing to offer to anyone. Like, I'm in survival mode. But God's asking her to give and to serve this man of God, this prophet Elijah. And it just got me thinking about how so often us, when we're struggling, we get so me-focused, so self-focused, and we stop serving, we stop giving, we stop thinking about others. It's all about ourselves, our problem, and getting through this. And God was asking this widow to say, no, I want you to look outside of yourselves, and I want you to provide for Elijah. And that's just a thought to think about in our own lives is, God, how do you want me to serve even when I'm really struggling? How do you want me to step out in faith? And I think a lot of times when we do take that step of faith and we serve and we stop focusing so much on ourselves when we're struggling, God encourages us through our willingness to encourage others and our willingness to give to others. Because if anything, being real self-focused only makes us more discouraged and more dark. And this story of this widow, it's like if she hadn't served, she would have literally died. There was a lot at stake. But also, if she hadn't have served, she would have died, but she would have missed out on experiencing who God truly was, and what God could do in her life, and how God could do this miracle, not only providing her food, but raising her son to life. All of the trials that would happen in our life is just another opportunity for us to know God more, for us to get closer to God. But if we're just gonna be self-focused and we're just gonna turn inward and we're gonna say, why me, and get angry and feel sorry for ourselves, we're missing out on experiencing God in incredible ways. And I mean incredible ways. And I say that from experience, because if I had not taken steps of faith in my life throughout the years, I would have missed out on incredible opportunities. If I had said no to serving God in certain ways, if I had said, that's too hard, I'm sorry, God, I need to self-protect myself, I'm a single mom, I gotta just do my own thing, I would have missed out on God's goodness. So that's my devotional for today. I hope I encouraged you. I will see you guys next week, and have a blessed week. Okay.